Good morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee along with my colleague John North. I'm John Becker. It's a pleasure to have you on this Sunday morning, and it's a pleasure to have the Chancellor of the University of Tennessee Knoxville back with us, Donde Plowman, marking 6 years in that role. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited about that.
We will get to some of your priorities in just a second. First, though, I'm going to introduce our panel. Eddie Smith is a Republican, a longtime lawmaker. Good to have you with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Don Bosch runs his own law firm, and he's a Democrat.
Good morning, good warm morning.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be a hot one out there, as John North just mentioned. Chancellor, congrats again on 6 years. What do you think is the most important issue facing the University of Tennessee Knoxville right now?
I think the issue is, who do we want to be now? We have accomplished so many things in these last 6 years, and we're having a great conversation on campus about what's next for us. It's not a bad thing. It's a really good thing, but it's a fun conversation to have, and we've got all sorts of things we want to do next.
And what things are you hearing that resonate with you about people's priorities for the coming year or the next 5 years?
You know, there are three things that distinguish us, and I say this to the campus all the time. We have killed it with student success. We stood up a student success division, and it didn't take that long till we're now at 92% retention. That's a really good score in this business. The second thing is, look at what's happened in athletics. We are crushing it. We're the only school, this is one stat I'll give you, the only school of the last 2 years that has had every single team in postseason competition. Every sport. We have 20 sports. I always say all the time, that doesn't happen. Well, I'm right. It's only one of us that did that. And then the third is, we've really been growing our research. Both athletics and student success, we put a lot of financial resources into it over the years. Next up is for research. Like, we're going to really start investing. We're hoping to do a big hiring more faculty. And so that's kind of what's on the horizon. I talk about it as moving to the next level.
So, Chancellor, you mentioned research, and there are some concerns with some other organizations. I saw something that I was personally involved in with a CDC grant for an anti-drown proofing program. But you're talking about research, and that, of course, requires often a lot of federal money. Is there any concern by you and the administration that maybe you're going to have projects that will not get funded appropriately to be able to do?
Well, we've already had some that have been terminated. And so we're in what I think is a period of transition. And I think there's a conversation about how research is going to be funded. I think a new model is going to emerge, but for us, we have been we have not been as hurt as many big universities, mainly because the research that we're doing now, our strengths as a university, are in areas that are really important to the state, and they are aligned with the country's interests.
So you talk about a new model. What might be some elements of that new model that would replace some federal funding?
Well, one thing, I think we're all going to be looking at other sources, but I think most importantly, federal research, the way we have funded it, like there's a big conversation about the indirect costs are being lowered. I think there's a lot of people that agree we need to rethink what are our costs and how we charge it. So there's a group nationally coming up with some models, and I'm just optimistic enough to think we're going to get that figured out, and we'll get back on track. It won't be the same, but I think all of us are, I see it as a real opportunity for us. Our strengths are in nuclear, advanced manufacturing. Those are, I could go on and on. Those are all things that are still really important to the country.
Those aren't quite as controversial as some others. So.
Yep.
And you mentioned this, the student success, that you've seen. I mean, let's look at it. 6 years ago, the enrollment at the University of Tennessee was, 40 some odd thousand. Today we're over 50,000. I think across the whole spectrum.
System,
You all are bucking the trend of what's really happening nationally.
That's right.
What's kind of led to that?
So I always like to say, well, we have a great chancellor. No, I'm just kidding. We were at 29,000 at UT Knoxville when I first came here, and we were at 38,872 this year. The country has caught on to something's happening at Tennessee. Everywhere I go, people tell me, I'm in Northern Virginia, I'm in Austin, Texas, I'm in Dallas, I get phone calls, is my kid going to get in? And our first priority, of course, is kids from Tennessee. But we've grown as well as we've grown our academic profile. So I'm really proud of that. We had 63,000, pretty close, applications for this fall's class that'll come in at around 7,000 students.
Right.
I think we should all feel proud of that. I mean, that's just the university we are right now. And a big factor is what we're doing in the student experience. Kids want to come here, and guess what? They want to be a volunteer. And it doesn't hurt when athletics is doing so well. Last year we had 1.4 billion viewers.
Wow. So, Donde, one of the things I've seen change, and particularly when I was on the National Alumni Board with your direction and whatever, is we really didn't have an online education program. And then the misfortune of COVID sort of forced the University of Tennessee into, hey, how do we do this online? Now we have this huge increase in students. What portion of that increase is attributable to now online students?
Well, so far, not that large of an amount, but our plan is that in another 5 years we've started a new digital learning program in partnership with Arizona State University, because they're the best public school in the country, and it's a novel idea. Our students the first couple of years can take their general ed requirements that may in fact be taught by ASU instructors, and so we don't have to do everything in duplication. So I'm excited about that. It's just getting off the ground, and we're hoping for about 14,000 additional enrollments.
That's sort of low-hanging fruit in terms of enrollment.
There's almost 1 million people in Tennessee who have some college credit but no degree. And those are the people we're looking to reach.
We heard that.
I'm excited.
We have heard, I'm sorry to interrupt you, heard that from Bill Haslam. We've heard that from President Randy Boyd. Unless those people get educated and finish that degree, we aren't going to reach that 55. That's such an important percentage to have of our population.
And there's still so many job openings requiring a 4-year degree here in Tennessee. So that's the aim of that, is to really try to be responsive to the state's workforce needs.
We've got to take a quick break here on Inside Tennessee. John North will lead us off with questions coming up right here on this Sunday morning. Back on Inside Tennessee, John North, our guest, is the Chancellor at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville.
Chancellor, I've been wanting to ask you about this since we knew you were going to come on. This summer is an enormous development in terms of athletics and the university and the relationship and all of that. We will have revenue sharing. It's something that you've been talking about. You posted an interesting discussion with Danny White about leadership, and you guys talked about that. And I think you both said, Danny, collective bargaining seems to be where we're headed. Can you talk a little about this? This is a phenomenal moment in history for UT as well as college athletics.
I think this House settlement, honestly, is the first step towards the next of whatever's going to be in college athletics. And Danny and I that day were talking about, ultimately, if we don't get federal legislation to protect us from more antitrust lawsuits, that seems like the only other real protection. Our hope is that implementing this House settlement, and that's all we're talking about in the SEC and elsewhere, that's gonna move us in the right direction. So revenue sharing is an important aspect of that. Also trying to get a handle on NIL opportunities that are legitimate opportunities.
Or mischief might be a better word.
Well, we want to try to get that out of the picture.
Side,
exactly. So I think we're just in transition, I believe. This is not the end. This is the next step, as I see it.
You just raised an extremely important position that it's probably not getting enough lip service, and that is the issue of congressional intervention, or Congress stepping up to do something about this, because we are kind of in the Wild West, and Congress could do something. Are you all at the point of trying to recruit significant people in Congress, the House and the Senate?
Well, the commissioner, I would say the two commissioners, especially in the SEC and the Big Ten, have been spending a lot of time in Washington and working with different members of the Senate and the House. Our hope is something will still happen, but it's not clearly going to happen before this is implemented, which is July 1. So we just got to keep persevering, and the hope is that we get that protection one way or the other.
I want to talk about another Wild West and groundswell in academics and in our culture, and that is artificial intelligence. Chancellor, what's your take on its impact on higher education and our daily lives? Well,
in higher education, I see it as a tool that we're trying to use. And I talked to an alum and a lawyer. Some of you are lawyers here. And he was telling me how much it's transformed the legal real business, what you do every day. And he was just making the case that law schools need to be insisting on it. We're putting modules of AI in so many courses at the university. We've developed an applied online certificate that people can get. So many disciplines are incorporating AI. It's not something that we should be afraid of, but we've got to be smart about it. So I think in terms of higher education, it's here to stay, and we need to figure out how to use it in productive ways.
Because we are seeing, you mentioned law students and also engineering students, such a heavy emphasis at the UTK on engineering. Some of those students may walk out after 4 years and think, oh my gosh, a computer can do what I just spent 4 years learning how to do.
I think there's any number of disciplines that face that. So what we need students to be able to do is use AI to be the person who knows how to use it and how to solve problems with it. And so I think it is the future. It's not going anywhere. But it's important that we, and it's tied to so many things. It's tied to nuclear energy. I mean, we need more energy to be able to use AI the way we want to.
And one of the things, staying with the education topic, switching a little bit to what we're seeing the transition nationally on the K-12 with the potential closure of the Department of Education, everything being pushed back to the states. When I served in the legislature, I actually convened a task force made up of the University of Tennessee education officials, as well as others across the state, as well as K-12, because we did not have great alignment. And we've done a lot in this state to fix alignment, especially in the teacher prep programs.
Yes.
As you look at the DOE possibly pushing things down to the state, how can the university really help beef up that teacher prep program for getting teachers ready for what they're going to encounter with students in the classroom?
Well, that's a dense question there, Eddie.
I know. I'm hoping I can track on it. No, it's super important, and I'm really proud of the work we've done in our College of Education. I think we've been a leader in the state with helping prepare not just students, and we're growing the number of students who are involved, who want to be teachers, but also through this program we had called Grow Your Own, where we help people who are already working out in schools but don't have certification to quickly get that certification. And just this last year, we worked really closely with Knox County Schools to try to help fill positions. So they went into this past year with almost all their positions filled, whereas the previous year there were quite a number of openings.
Yeah, we had Dr. Reiswick on recently, and he was saying how much he's been able to fill, and he has very few vacancies now, unlike past years.
Well, we're the land-grant university, and but that's an example of what something I think a land-grant does. People think of the land-grant as it's all about agriculture. That's a really important part, but it's also partnering with communities to help solve the problems that they have. So we're going to continue to be that and embrace that part of our identity.
We're going to take another quick break on Inside Tennessee, back with more with Chancellor Plowman, and also talk about what could be known as Crane University, the amount of building on campus. We're back with that right after this. John North, we're back with Chancellor Plowman, and we're going to talk about the future.
The future, I guess that means progress. So it's a two-sided coin, it seems to me. I mean, it's very awesome to see all the cranes going up, as John alluded, to see that the university is getting some fantastic buildings to accommodate a lot of important programs. But pardon me for being the grouchy old man on the yard, but some of it is not so great for some of us who like that folksy, approachable manner of UT, if you will, and feeling like we can come on campus and feel welcome. And I didn't go to UT, but I've been around it enough to feel like it's a little bit of mine. How do you balance that? Because I worry sometimes that what people know as UT gets lost in the higher the buildings go up.
Well, I hope that's not true. Our students tell us that it's a big university, but it feels small. And we've worked really hard to keep that it feels small thing accurate. It also, we want students to come here and have facilities that are better than what they had in high school. And I'm thinking about the new chemistry building we're going to have. That was the largest allocation the legislature's ever made to a higher ed project. And they demolished it. It took us 3 years to get the money for it, and in 2 days they took the thing down. Panhellenic came down, and we're putting chemistry in there. But just yesterday, Randy Boyd and I went and toured almost every project that's underway. We've got 3 new dorms underway, 2 of which will be opening in a few weeks. We went and looked at those. They're beautiful. We finally figured out how to manage these projects, not having to ask the state for everything. So our dorms, for example, the first time we've ever done public-private partnership. And guess what? It went faster. They're going to be better quality. They're going to maintain them. And in 40 years, we'll own the building. We will manage them. And so I'm really excited about that. That's been a huge move forward. We have one more dorm opening next year. So that's 3,000 new beds by next fall 26, 2,000 by this fall. Every student will be in a newish dorm this fall.
One of the things we talked to you when you were here last was parking. That was such a topic of conversation.
Yes.
Is it still the problem that it was, or do you think that some of the things that you've done as a school have changed that?
Okay, so we're now using the word mobility.
Okay.
Okay. And
They're masking
No
things.
one has mobility.
our students are getting with the culture. Like, for example, this year, we strongly discourage freshmen from bringing a car. If you're going to live on campus, there will be very few spaces for you to park your car. There is peripheral space off campus, but we have a partnership with the city. Our students can ride free on the CAT, and we had 154,000 rides that our students took in the last year. So we have now 31 buses that are moving students all around campus. So we're really encouraging more of a walking and riding
Well,
campus.
let's not forget the dreaded gnats, the scooters.
Well, oh yeah, those I didn't
They're
like those either.
downtown, and I
Trip over them.
and get hit by them. Kids riding down the sidewalk. Are you seeing a lot of scooter use on campus?
Not so much, but here's some interesting ideas we're experimenting with for this fall. We are going to look at ride sharing on campus. So students who weren't able to get a parking permit, we're looking at ways that we could credit them for some ride sharing. We're also looking at making cars for rent available. So if you come here from West Tennessee and you really only want the car so you can drive home, we're working on trying to set up a situation where you could rent a car for the weekend and go
We
home.
have some beaters we could sell you.
And not to be with John North, the old grouchy person that grew up in Knoxville, but the Strip as we all knew it is really gone. So has there been any talk about just kind of rebranding that to like the Concrete Canyon or the Volunteer Canyon?
She's not in charge of that.
The Cumberland Canyon is what I will now forever call it.
Well, I have friends who say to me, I just liked it better when it was, the way it used to be. The future is students want nice places to live. They want to be close to campus, and I think that's a good thing. We know that when students live on campus, they actually make better grades, they graduate faster. So I think the closer they are to campus, the better it is. So I know for some of y'all that's a big step, but I think you can get past it.
Listen, Whataburger's coming down there. I
Yes.
got okay with it when Whataburger announced. So
Let's talk about the bridge.
Yeah.
Oft discussed, this pedestrian bridge that is still in the works. The city wants to build it. You've got your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Where does that stand? Is it going to happen?
The last time I talked to the mayor, we're still, nobody's told us it isn't. So we're planning as if it is going to happen, and that's going to be a great development for the city and for that side of the river.
Well, it expands UT in a place that really hadn't been outside of Buckle
Exactly,
Highway over
yeah.
to the South Bank.
And with the things that Danny's doing in athletics, this new entertainment district that's going to be right down there,
there on
and
Nayland
hotel over there. So people being able to access that from the other side of the river, it's going to be great.
Yeah,
So the planning's underway.
So let's talk about the expansion of UT beyond sort of the traditional footprint. I mean, now we have certainly an architecture building that's coming downtown,
Right.
being kind of likely under construction soon. And there are other elements of UT that have come downtown. You now have the conference center right there.
Right.
What else is going that direction? Because
Well,
that's been a good partnership.
We really want to grow more of that. Like the mayor's office, my office are working on how we can link the campus to downtown. And we've got some ideas in place that'll...
Geography is an inhibitor.
Yeah, well, so whatever we can do, we were looking at some different models for extending academic buildings, but doing multi-use neighborhoods, you might call it,
Right.
innovation districts. Is what we're very interested in doing. So, and I got a tour, this is my tour week, of the new revised, renovated railroad station,
Right.
where architecture is putting their third-year students, faculty, putting their design studios down there. It's going to be beautiful.
Close friends of mine are involved in that project.
Yeah.
That's why I have some familiarity with
Yeah,
it.
well, it's great. And their subject matter is the city and lived communities and learning how to do that. So I think we're growing not only in numbers and physically, but we're growing in how we think about teaching and education, and that's a perfect example.
Lastly, Chancellor, we only have about a minute left, but the land-grant university used to be funded in large part by state dollars from the legislature, and that script really flipped in the last 15 years, where it used to be 75% of the budget from the state, 25% from private donations. Explain to our viewers in the short time we have left what's happened and the challenges that presents now.
Well, we've been fortunate in this state that our state still supports UT Knoxville and public higher education really well. We're in a great position. There are federal dollars tied up with the agriculture piece of the land grant, and those are not in jeopardy in any way that I know of. So we are we're sitting in a really good position. Our financial position is strong. I think it puts the responsibility on us to think about how we use our resources even wisely, more so than it's ever been true. Our philanthropy is going strong, just like everything else. We've raised more money this year than we've ever raised for UT Knoxville. And so we're looking at all different sources of funds, and I think that's our responsibility. The state can't do everything, but they're very generous.
Chancellor Plowman, always great to see you. Thank you for making time for us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you all.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of summer, and the new year is close upon us, no doubt. Fall almost
guys.
here, even though we just entered summer. We're back with our talk around right after this.
Thank you.
Quickly, with 4 years left, what does the Chancellor have to do to maintain the momentum?
Honestly, I think just keeping doing what they've been doing. You look back when her and Randy really took over and what they've accomplished in 6 years, it's nothing short of remarkable.
I think they're also going to have to pay attention to Washington right now. It's so tumultuous. We are linked without being able to break it to Washington. So if we can survive maybe this administration, she's going to be great, and the university's going to continue to be great.
John, what are you watching for?
Well, I agree with all of that. She's got a great hand right now. It's the kind of hand you would want to hold. On the other hand, we have a new football season approaching. You didn't get to ask her that question. I would not want to be a chancellor at the University of Tennessee, because what if your football coach goes sour? That's not a small thing.
Well, we've got experience with that.
We have a lot of experience with that.
Let's shift to a loss this week for East Tennessee of a political veteran. This is Frank Nicely. He served in the State House and the State Senate for almost 24 years, and we saw a lot of remembrances about him for a lot of high-ranking people throughout the week. I want to show you just one thought. This is Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally. Had a great sense of humor. Like Will Rogers, served in both the Senate and the House. He said serving in the House was like being in junior high school, and serving in the Senate was like being in a nursing home. This is somebody who had an outsized influence on East Tennessee and was really frank in all of his discussions, Don, even with you.
Especially with me. Frank and I were definitely oil and water, but he could make a dead person laugh, and he is in heaven and making some folks laugh right now.
Longtime Jefferson County farmer, you served with him as well, Eddie.
I did, and the quote from Lieutenant Governor McNally was one of the first things that night Frank told me sitting in War Memorial is that very quote, and I'll never forget laughing. But Frank sometimes made some enemies, but what you can never say that Frank didn't have was he didn't have a heart as pure as gold that just loved this community.
And that quote, by the way, is one that's only good for public consumption. There were some far funnier.
Well said, Don. Eddie, Don, thank you. John, thank you. We leave you with Frank Nicely, gone at the age of 78. We hope to see you next week on Inside Tennessee.